Heero here, and today we're gonna look at Vivian, the Adorable Phaeton Mega Simp who uses her off-field attacks to trigger anomalies and disorders that deal big PP damage. I'll be discussing her kit, builds, engines, and possible themes. Just as a quick disclaimer though, the footage and information that will be shown is from the Creator Experience server, so things can still change when her banner drops. Let's start by discussing Flight and Guard Feathers since her entire kit revolves around consuming them. Now, Flight Feathers are indicated by the small inner circle and has a max count of 5 stacks. They are required to generate Guard Feathers and there are a number of ways to get them. The first is through her Noble Woman state, which activates after using her BA4 or a dodge counter. Pressing the attack button during this state has her do one lunge attack that gives 1 flight feather. Do note, you get 1 auto dodge each time you enter this state, and you can also do a perfect dodge with a lunge attack, and doing so gives you 1 extra flight feather for a total of 2. As for her EX special, Violet Requiem, it deals a lot of anomaly buildup, but the more important thing is that it generates 3 flight feathers. And if you decide to hold the dodge button during the skill, it puts her in the Noble Woman state, which is neat since it allows you to do a combo that generates up to 4 feathers with 1 use of her EX special. As for her ult, Soaring Bird Song is her standard high anomaly building ult and is a stronger version of her EX special that gives 5 flight feathers. It's also important you don't use her EX special and ult in quick succession because it leads to overcapping and wasting of flight feathers. Now, aside from her ult, EX special, and the Noble Woman state, her chain attack and assist follow-ups also generate 2 flight feathers. Now, you can use these flight feathers to generate guard feathers by entering the Fluttering Frog state through her Noble Woman attack, EX special, ult, dodge counter, quick assist, assist follow-up, or chain attack. Pressing the attack button or switching to another unit during this state has Vivian do a dive attack and converts all flight feathers into guard feathers with a max of 5 stacks. Now, you can consume these guard feathers to activate her Feather Bloom attack by using an EX special attack with any character, and it can be triggered while she's on or off field. And fun fact, Astra Yao's Tremulo attacks upon quick assisting can trigger this as well since they count as EX specials. But it's very important to make sure her guard feather count is never empty for too long since a lot of her damage and anomaly buildup is tied to her off-field attacks and its interactions with her core skills of Bloom and DOT procs. But speaking of which, let's talk about her core skill, starting with her additional ability which needs an anomaly or ether agent to activate. It increases the damage of corruption and the corruption status disorder by 12%, and it also consumes 1 guard feather to trigger her off-field bloom attacks whenever an ally triggers an anomaly. Just note, you can only trigger her off-field attacks with anomalies every 0.55 seconds. But you can still trigger it twice in a row if any EX special happens to apply an anomaly. Now, her off-field attacks is her main way of building Ether Anomaly and triggering disorders, which of course minimizes her field time, making her the perfect partner for on-field or quick swap anomaly carries. As for her core passive, it gives her 2 flight feathers at the start of battle, and whenever her off-field or Fluttering Frog hits an enemy with an anomaly, it inflicts Vivian's Prophecy. Vivian's Prophecy is a DOT that deals damage every 0.55 seconds and lasts until the anomaly goes away. Just note, sadly this DOT does not build Ether Anomaly no matter if Vivian is on or off field. And whenever her Feather Bloom attack hits an enemy with an anomaly, it triggers a Bloom, a damage instance heavily depending on Vivian's AP and the type of anomaly on the enemy. So a Bloom's damage is equal to a percentage of the original anomaly damage. And for every 10 AP Vivian has, this percentage increases depending on the element of the original anomaly. So for example, if Vivian has 350 anomaly proficiency, a Bloom will deal 280% of the original anomaly's damage to an enemy with a burn anomaly, and 26.25% if the enemy has the assault anomaly. But don't let these low numbers fool you, cause for the sake of balance, a Bloom has lower multipliers for some elements cause certain anomaly triggers deal more damage than others. So for example, despite a Bloom's low multipliers for physical anomalies, Assault's high damage should still result in high Bloom damage even when compared to Burn with its high Bloom multipliers. Now, there is no cap to a Bloom's AP scaling, so get as much AP as you can to ensure a Bloom will deal good damage despite whatever elemental anomaly team you're running. But for ability prio, level up her core skill first, then her basic attacks, then her skill and ult, then assist, and finally her dodge. But if you only care about her anomaly damage, leveling her core passive is enough, but I suggest leveling her basic at least to squeeze in a bit more damage from her off-field attacks. But with her kit out of the way, let's talk about her Mindscapes. Her M1 refunds 1 flight feather after consuming 4 guard feathers, and increases all anomaly and disorder damage by 16% for enemies under her Vivian's Prophecy DOT. The Flight Feather refund is a decent quality of life change that can shorten her rotations. This is of course all on top of the 16% damage buff, allowing for more team-wide disorder or anomaly damage. Her M2 increases her Ether anomaly build-up rate by 25% and makes her Bloom's ignore 15% res while increasing its benefits from anomaly proficiency to 130% of the original value. This increases the multiplier gains for Bloom you get for every 10 AP Vivian has to the multipliers shown in screen, while also helping her build Ether anomalies faster, allowing for more disorders. While her M4 gives Vivian 5 guard feathers at the start of combat while guaranteeing crits from Fluttering Frock and Feather Bloom attacks, while also letting them give her a 12% attack buff for 12 seconds with its duration refreshing per each trigger. Aside from allowing you to skip her rotations at the start of combat, it's pretty much as a Mindscape, allowing you to squeeze in a bit more damage from Vivian. And finally, her M6 buffs her Ether damage by 40%, while her EX Special and Noble Woman's Lunge or Perfect Dodge will now generate 1 additional Flight Feather. Aside from this, her Fluttering Frock will consume all current Guard Feathers to launch a special Bloom instance, with each Guard Feather consumed increasing its damage. Just note, this consumes all remaining Guard Feathers before it converts any of her Flight Feathers into Guard Feathers. So this M6 does not mess up her ability to be played as an off-field sub-DPS. And with her Mindscapes out of the way, let's talk about her possible Wenjins. Vivian's signature gives 90 anomaly proficiency with its main stat, while increasing her anomaly build-up rate by 40%. And when Vivian deals Ether damage, it increases her AP by 20 for 5 seconds, stacking up to 6 times, with each trigger resetting its duration. This Wenjin can give up to 210 anomaly proficiency, which is insane for increasing her Bloom, anomaly, and disorder damage by a ton. This is all on top of allowing her to build Ether anomaly extremely fast if you combine its bonus anomaly build-up rate with other AM sources. A good alternative would be Time Weaver, with it being able to give her 75 bonus AP for 15 seconds whenever she uses an EX special. And it's not that hard to get 1 EX special within 15 seconds to refresh its buff. This is all on top of its 30% attack main stat and 25% disorder damage buff, enabling her to deal quite a bit of damage. But the only downside for this LC is that its bonus electric anomaly build-up rate is useless for Vivian. So with that being said, another alternative is Fusion Compiler. It also gives a 25 AP stacking buff with a maximum of 75 AP for 8 seconds every time she uses an EX special or special attack. And of course, it buffs her attack by 12% and has a pen ratio main stat. So it's a great choice if you're running her with pen ratio sources like a pen slot 5 or Rina. Weeping Gemini is her best free-to-play option for boss fights and late shield defense stages or Deadly Assault, with it providing lots of attack with its main stat and up to 192 anomaly proficiency at R5 just by inflicting enemies with anomalies. But it's very inconsistent if you run her with a stunner or in stages with lots of trash mobs or easy to stun enemies, since you lose all of its buff stacks once the enemy dies or recovers from a stun. Reinforced Gourmet is another good free-to-play option, providing 75 AP with its main stat and loss of attack just by using energy with EX specials. I would consider this to be better than Gemini for general use like farming or early shield defense stages, which typically has a lot of trash mobs or easy to stun enemies. Another good alternative is the PP's Electro Lip Gloss. You can essentially get his attack and damage buffs almost permanently, since a majority of the time, the enemy will have an anomaly anyway. Now, if you're wondering if Flame Maker Shaker is a good option on Vivian, sadly, in my opinion, it's not that good for her for quite a bit of reasons. First of all, you need EX specials or assists to build its passive stacks. But the problem is, Vivian's off-field attacks and DOT do not count as either of these. So without Astra Yao, the only way to build this Wenjin's passive is through her EX specials. However, it's very difficult to get her EX specials within the 6-second window needed to stack and refresh this Wenjin's buffs to keep consistent uptime, which in turn also makes it hard to get and maintain its 50 AP buff. Now, you can probably make it work on Vivian by quick assist spamming with Astra Yao, but not everyone has her, and due to how much of a hassle it is to stack and keep uptime on its buffs even with Astra Yao, I don't really recommend it over her other options. But with possible Wenjins out of the way, let's talk about drive discs. For the 4-piece set, the best option is Phaeton's Melody since it was tailor-made for her. Not only does it allow her to build her Ether Anomaly faster with its Anomaly Mastery buff, but it also gives her 45 bonus AP and a 25% Ether damage buff just by having her allies use EX specials, buffing the damage of her Ether Anomalies, Disorders, and Bloom damage massively. As for the 2-piece set, her best options are either Chaos Jazz or Freedom Blues. This is because they both give 30 bonus AP to help improve her Bloom and Anomaly damage. Alternatively, you can also use 2-piece Astral Voice, Hormone Punk, or Chaotic Metal to buff her damage. But I would only recommend using them if they have significantly better stats than Freedom Blues or Chaos Jazz. But with their possible drive discs out of the way, let's talk about stats. For main stats, you want Anomaly Proficiency for slot 4, Ether, Pen, or Attack for slot 5, and Anomaly Mastery for slot 6. Now, if you have her signature, you can use an attack slot 6 as well. But in my opinion, even if you have her signature, Anomaly Mastery is still better to get as much disorders and anomalies out as possible. But I suggest testing things out to see what works for you. For the slot 5 main stat, Ether damage is the best for general use and is good for any scenario or team, while Pen is good if you plan to run her with Rina or other Pen sources, essentially allowing you to ignore a big chunk of the enemy's defense for massive damage. And just use Attack if you can't get any good Ether or Pen slot 5s. Just note, it's easy to dilute the attack stat, especially if you're running her with attack buffers. As for substats, you mainly want to focus on AP first, then attack percent, and finally flat pen or attack, which is fairly standard for Anomaly units. However, as I said earlier, a Bloom's multipliers heavily depend on the amount of AP she has, and there is no cap to this. So, try to get as much AP as you can to ensure she does a lot of damage. With her stats out of the way, let's talk about possible teammates. Vivian can pretty much perform her role as an off-field Anomaly sub-DPS for any current and possible future Anomaly carries in the game. Due to her mainly building Ether Anomaly off-field, it doesn't make her compete with these units for field time. And her fast Anomaly build-up rate does benefit disorder-centric units like Yanagi or Miyabi. Just note for Miyabi, Vivian's Ablooms count as additional Anomaly triggers and not a disorder, so it does not charge her Fallen Frost. However, Ablooms can still trigger on enemies under freeze from Miyabi's Frostburn break. And if you skip the kit overview, here's a very important note for physical and ice anomaly agents. Vivian's Abloom damage is equal to a percentage of the original anomaly damage for every 10 AP Vivian has. And this percentage depends on the element of the original anomaly, with physical and ice having the lowest. But again, don't let those low numbers fool you. Abloom has lower multipliers for some elements because certain anomaly triggers like Assault deal way more damage than others. So for example, despite Abloom's low multipliers for physical anomalies, Assault's high damage should still result in high Abloom damage even when compared to Burn with its high Abloom multipliers. But for supports, she can work with just about anyone, so just pair her with whoever you have. However, the most notable support to run with her is Astra Yao. Aside from her huge damage and attack buffs, Miss Yao gives a bit more benefits to Vivian. First of all, Miss Yao's quick assist mechanic makes quick swapping into Vivian much easier. And the Tremolo attacks Astra Yao launches upon quick assisting all count as EX specials, which of course provides Vivian a quick and reliable way to spam her off-field attacks, which is useful for triggering more Ablooms and compensating for agents with slower anomaly and energy buildup rates. And lastly, they're both Ether agents that can attack enemies and build Ether Anomaly off-field, meaning pairing them together allows you to build Ether Anomaly super fast, which is useful for triggering more disorders. With our possible teammates out of the way, let's cook up some teams. But before we cook up some teams, just note, you need at least one of the characters shown in screen to activate their additional ability. And as usual, just pick a Bangbu that would suit the party. But with that being said, her best teams are double Anomaly teams, with her acting as the sub-DPS with an on-field Anomaly carry and support unit of your choice. Anyone will work, so just use whoever you have. But in my opinion, the best variation of this comp is one with Vivian, Astra Yao as your support, and your preferred Anomaly DPS. You can use Miyabi, Yanagi, Jane, Piper, or any future Anomaly DPS. Vivian replaces Bernice in these duo Anomaly comps, and in my opinion, she does perform a bit better. This is because of her damage being higher, resulting from Vivian's Blooms, and Corruption having higher damage than Burn. And with Astra and Vivian being both off-field Ether agents, they not only give your main DPS more field time, but when paired together, they also enable the team to trigger more disorders because they build Ether Anomalies so fast with their off-field attacks. Now if you don't have Astra Yao, you can replace her with any supports you have. Caesar, Lucy, Nicole, Seth, and Rina are all good options. But just note, without Astra Yao's EX specials triggering on Quick Assist, Vivian will trigger less off-field attacks, meaning less Bloom triggers and slower Ether Anomaly buildup, which of course results in less damage from Vivian. This only really becomes noticeable in boss fights if you run a DPS who tends to get their EX special slower or has a slower Anomaly application rate like Jane. But aside from that, despite not having Astra Yao, Vivian is still able to apply Anomaly super quick due to how much Anomaly mastery she has, and still does good damage with her Blooms and Disorders. She performs well as a sub-DPS with any support or Anomaly carry, especially ones with fast Anomaly application rates or those that tend to use a lot of EX specials like Miyabi or Yanagi. And due to how much damage a Vivian duo Anomaly comp ends up doing, it can basically clear just about any endgame content in the game, being able to perform quick shield defense clears and achieve high scores in Deadly Assault with ease. You also have the option of running a quick swap comp with her and Bernice that can spam so much Blooms and Disorders. Or you can also run a triple Anomaly team focused on triggering as much Anomalies and Disorders as possible to make up for the lack of a dedicated support. However, these comps do require a bit more skill to play effectively, so only run them if you're okay with having to put a bit more conscious effort while playing or are looking for a unique and not so normal team to try. But that's about it because I'm beginning to lose my voice. But there's just one last question. Is she a must-pull? Well, as usual, it depends on your account. She's not really a must-pull if you don't have any Anomaly DPSs and you don't plan to use Piper. She can't really fulfill her role as an Anomaly sub-DPS if she has no one to act as a sub-DPS for. And despite her being better than Bernice, she's also not a must-pull if you have Bernice and are satisfied with her performance as a sub-DPS in your Anomaly teams. In both cases, it's much better to roll for characters you like or characters that will benefit your account more. Remember, 2.0 is coming with its colorful cast of new characters, so it's not a bad idea to start saving. However, Vivian is definitely a must-pull if you're needing a good Anomaly sub-DPS to take your Anomaly teams to the next level. She is a very simple and easy-to-play unit while being flexible and can fit in just about any Anomaly team. But her simplicity doesn't hold her back from being able to deal good damage through Anomalies, Disorders, and Bloom triggers. From damage and performance alone, I can consider her as a worth it upgrade to Bernice if you're mainly playing Anomaly teams. And even if you have Bernice, having both of them is not bad since you can run them in two different Anomaly teams. Now, I can't guarantee how she'll age as a playable unit, but in my opinion, she can be useful for future Anomaly characters. Meaning, your future potential value can increase when more Anomaly units come out. And knowing Hoyo, there would definitely be more since Hoyo really loves Anomalies for some reason. But at the end of the day though, if you like Vivian, pull for her, and if you don't, well don't. Personally, I'm definitely gonna be rolling for her because our Mega Simp is so adorable, especially when she's gushing about Lord Phaeton. But anyway, make sure to tell me what you think about her in the comments below, and don't forget to hit me with a like and a sub.